It's that time again. Engines on, let's go. Welcome back for the 22nd and 23rd episode of The Whole Truth, the weekly StarCitizen news show that deals in facts. My name is Wes and I'll be your guide as we navigate the convoluted web of events in the StarCitizen world. I decided to go ahead and combine these two episodes since I missed last week's due to some unexpected happenings in my own personal life that forced me out of the house on the days that I usually create these. So this should be a packed episode and it will be a little longer than usual. I also have two other video series in the works, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be the first to see them when they come out. Let's do the RSI website recap. There was an in-game lore update from the Advocacy Archive series called Case File, #XT-some random numbers and then a letter. In an interagency message from Salim Dominic to Victor Fair, carbon copied to Adina Pastor, we get an assessment report about police responding to an anonymous tip about a derelict ship. It was reported that the ship collided with an asteroid and some dead folks were found inside. The derelict coffin ship was indeed a Starfarer registered to a Victor Florian. There was no cargo or fuel containers, and the owner was known to run a hauling company and commit a little of the old drunken public douchebaggery from time to time. It was determined that the ship had actually been stripped completely bare, and the collision with the asteroid was simply from the ship's systems being absent. Foul play was obvious, and for the icing on the cake, 4 bodies were found inside a crawl space where it appeared they were killed by a mixture of energy and kinetic energy weapons. The blood patterns revealed that the victims were killed inside the crawl space. The area was cleaned and no evidence left behind. The report follows up with some theories on how this happened, but I don't want to give everything away. Hangar patch 11.1 dropped, and this one is mostly just for the Oculus Rift integration. There are a lot of known issues with it so far, but it should work at least enough to give you some idea of what it's going to look like with the Rift. We got an update for PAX East and the Wall of Honor, which includes some information about the team at Turbulent dropping a new updated build of the RSI website that will add new features. For PAX East, we're told to mark our calendars for the evening of April 10th, and the DFM will be shown in a special event for citizens from 8 to midnight, with subscribers and concierge getting an hour early. The reveal will be at a location outside of the PAX East show, so if you don't have PAX tickets, you can still attend. The venue will hold around 1,500 people and registration will launch next week. There will be no cost for citizens to attend, only backers may attend and no +1s. There's also a special contest for that event where 3 members from each of the 6 most active StarCitizen organizations will be invited to have a special interview with Chris Roberts during PAX. Organization activity takes into account active chats and forum posts, not just the amount of members. Chris will also make an appearance on the show floor to show the DFM in a booth, and he will also be speaking on a PC Gamer panel that Friday. The Wall of Honor that will be displayed in the LA office will display the names of everyone who had an Imperator or Imperator Prime subscription for at least a year. If you're part of that group, you can go to My RSI, Settings, and then Profile and fill out the Wall of Honor field with your choice of what you want to appear there. I managed to get a spot, but I still haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to put in the blank. One important thing to note is that this list goes to the printers on March 7th, so you have a very limited time to fill it out. If you miss it, it will use your community moniker automatically. Dateline Session Part 5 and 6 are out and they're great as usual. I plan to do this entire series in a lore reading video series, so I will not give away the details, but if you're not following the series yet, it is one of the best to come out of the StarCitizen universe so far. Don't miss these. If you're a subscriber on the RSI website, you now have access to the newest issue of Jump Point magazine, issue number 15. It details some work-in-progress info for the Idris design, a behind-the-scenes look at TNGS with Sandy, that's the next great starship, some more fiction writing, and a galactic guide for the Odin system by Ben Lesnick. We got an update on the specifications of the new Mustang starter ship, as well as the same for the planned gunship that the next great starship team is going to build. The Mustang will be a 1-crew ship with 2 TR2 primary thrusters and 6 TR1 maneuvering thrusters. It will sport 2 size 2 Class 1 wing mount hardpoints and 1 size 1 Class 4 nose turret hardpoint. The planned gunship is listed as a ship that's not too maneuverable because the thruster's rotation speed won't be super fast. The ship is intended for frontline combat and police action against the Vandul. The crew will consist of 1 pilot, 2 gunners, and between 4 to 6 Marines. The ship will feature 4 TR2 jointed thrusters, and to round out the build, a Class 4 hardpoint for the pilot's controlled turret, which consists of 2 Class 1 mounts that are size 3. It will also feature 2 Class 3 hardpoints for 2 missile racks and 2 Class 5 manned turret hardpoints. Of course, all of these specs are subject to change over time as these ships are built out in the engine and things have to be fixed or moved around, which typically does occur at some point. It's looking good so far though. You can now RSVP for the PAX event, where Cloud Imperium Games is hosting a special reveal of the dogfighting module for backers only. It will happen on April 10th. We previously confirmed 8 to midnight, subscribers getting in an hour early. You do not have to have PAX tickets to get into the event. It happens the day before PAX in a special venue. The event will hold 1,500 people, so get your RSVP in now. The event takes place at Royale Boston, which is located at 275 Tremont Street. No plus ones, you must be a citizen, and you must RSVP. As an update to this and the previous info about this in this episode, supposedly it's over, but when I check the registration page, it still shows over 600 spots available, and the sign up is still working. So if you want to see if you actually made the cut, I'm also posting a link that shows on your profile if you're in or not. You can also still try to register because, like I said, the thing is still up when I go to it. CIG has announced a new feature on the website, a monthly production report to detail the progress from all the different teams working on StarCitizen. The report for February is up, and if you'd like to run down a list of everything in production and who's doing what, you can have a look at last month's report. The link is below in the About section. Click Show More, and you'll see links to everything I reference in every show every week. So I want you guys to know where I'm getting my facts from. We get a look at a new galactic guide for the system Tiber. It's heavily suggested that you should not visit Tiber because it is a bleeding wound on the face of the explored galaxy as the site of countless battles between the humans and the Vanduul. Tiber is a standard K-type main sequence star orbited by 2 planets. The system itself is home to over 19 major initiatives against the Vanduul. During the first encounter with the Vanduul on Tiber 2, the UEE dispatched its best and brightest, the 6th Battle Group, to wipe out the population. Using antimatter bombs, the 6th decimated the planet's surface, wiping out the Vanduul there. The response from the Vanduul was a display of organization never seen from their species before as they launched advanced carrier air wings and slaughtered the UEE forces. One solitary remote observer escaped to relay the news of the defeat. So was born Grinder, ground zero of a multi-generational war against the Vanduul. We got a new company featurette on Golem Tech. Golem Tech produces gear for your spacefaring needs, namely EVA suits, and it seems to present a no-nonsense, performance-based style to the product. According to them, they carry the suits that workers trust shift after shift and job after job. Jump Point Volume 1 is available for pre-order now. This is a compilation of all the subscriber-only Jump Point issues from year 1, and it's available to purchase for anyone. This thing is massive. It consists of 13 full issues and 650 pages in one place. Each page in the book has 2 Jump Point pages on it, so the book itself is actually 330 pages long. I ordered one. I'm looking at it as a piece of gaming history. The Next Great Starship is in its 6th episode, and currently the judges are voting on which ship designs move on and which do not. These videos are quite long, so I'm planning on doing a couple of simple recaps of these shows in the next week. Hopefully I'll have the recap up for episode 5 and 6 before this week is over. Keep in mind, Whole Truth takes me around 15 to 20 hours to complete each week, and the length is getting longer because they keep adding more information and more shows during the week. Sharing time between my pregnant wife, my real-life responsibilities and job, and this media production job can get a bit hectic at times. I can promise I will do my best though, and you guys always make it worth it. That does it for new info from the website. Let's do the Wingmans Hangar recap. On Wingmans Hangar 58, we hear tales of the DFM servers actually being up and running internally. The team is testing between the different studios in preparation for the dogfighting module reveal at PAX East in mid-April. Keep in mind that the dogfighting module will launch to backers shortly after PAX East, or so we've been told by CIG. We also got word that the Vanduul Scythe, the rare enemy ship that we'll be fighting against in the early iterations of the DFM, is nearing completion. We recently saw that PBR video of the Scythe and it looks amazing. I can't wait to see these guys in action. We get an interview with Dave Haddock, the lead writer for Squadron 42. Dave's also responsible for a good amount of the fiction writing we've seen like Cassandra's Tears and Kid Crimson, as well as a lot of the Spectrum dispatches we get. In my experience, it's been quite rare to get really good writing for a video game that really works. Hopefully Dave is going to give us what we've been missing in a game story for so long, and that's passion. On Wingmans Hangar 59, Eric lets us know that they did some full motion recording during the week and that it's going smoothly. We also get a little sneak peek at the work on damage states that's being done. Damage states are basically what you see occurring when an object is destroyed in the game. The bits flying apart and all that good stuff. The Hornet has around 100 damage states already. When the ship is hit, it begins at the first damage state where little bits will break off and then eventually works its way up to 100% damage for a specific part of the ship where huge bits will break away. They're using Fume FX, a Hollywood level CG plugin, to model effects for the different damage states. They stated that they want these events to look like Hollywood quality stuff. One interesting note is that it was stated that you will get points for taking out different parts of the ship, and thus the way to get the most points from a ship kill is to dissect it one part at a time until you finally destroy it. This seems to lend itself to a little more jerkish behavior than I would like, but that's just my opinion. The MVP of the week for last week went to Mark Kemp for his thread, Create Your Own Art Using RSI's Assets. This is an extremely detailed walkthrough of how to extract and use RSI's assets to create your own stuff, including a bunch of different editing programs using a CryEngine plugin. Excellent write-up, Mark Kemp, and thanks for helping out the community. The MVP for this week went to Trillathon for his post, All the Buttons on the Cutlass Labeled for Easy Reference. Thanks for the helper, Trillathon. The fan focus for last week was for Caden L. Wellborn's unofficial StarCitizen soundtrack. We actually featured some of Caden's work way back on episode number 3 of The Whole Truth. The music is quite good and it provides a fitting atmosphere for the setting. Thanks again for the hard work, Caden. The fan focus for this week was all about a forum thread where people showed off skins that they would like to see in the game for different ships. It's a pretty interesting thread. Some of the ships look pretty cool. You can check that out in the info section below as always. Let's do some forum feedback. Forum feedback is going to be super dense this week, so kick back and relax while I run you through 2 weeks of information-packed Q&A. So that I can actually finish all of this editing this week, there will be no text on the screen. I apologize for that. I will play a video of some actual in-engine ship flight, courtesy of myself and Anything FPS. I did this on my live stream and I'm just going to show you guys a little bit of it. I will also put up the full unedited video on YouTube if you'd like to go over there and check it out. I'm linking a full transcript of all of the Q&A stuff below if you would like to read along. Next week we'll be back to normal. Those spider mines we saw last week were amazing, but got me to thinking, how would we manage to transport such a contraption without a ship as big as or larger than the Idris? Dave said they're really big. The scale on the demo of the guy running across the platform, a Hornet is very small compared to one of these. They had one on a test level in dogfighting and I flew up right next to it and was just staring up in awe. It's amazing. Then Rob said, not on the small ships, no, you're going to need a much bigger ship. What does Wingman do during the week at Cloud Imperium when not starring on Wingmans Hangar? Eric says meetings, meetings, and more meetings. We do a lot of coordination between all of the studios, all of the offices. My job is primarily to manage the Austin studio as well as check on the integration. The Austin studio is responsible for integrating all the bits and pieces into the game itself and the PU. Back in the day, the StarCitizen PU was built for solo players or small groups of players, with their citizen dossier highlighting their exploits as they journey through the verse and potentially becoming famous or infamous. Has the rise of popularity in organizations changed that mindset? Rob says no, it hasn't changed that focus at all. It's something we have planned for all along. We're still planning to support that whole range of soloists can go out there and wander around and do their thing in small groups. And while they may not be able to do things as epic as very large groups, there's still going to be plenty for them to do to gain reputation. We're supporting all of that. Will StarCitizen make use of CPUs with 6 and 8 cores? Rob says yes, in fact we already do, but the engineering team has plans to further support that to extend the capabilities of the engine to use it better. Right now you get stuck on seats in the Freelancer without a suit. I wouldn't want to buy a suit and not be able to get out the door. Are the airlocks on ships going to have size ratings? Rob said airlocks are going to be different sizes and that means not every ship can dock with every other ship. That's the theory behind it at least. At the same time, we're not going to let you buy a giant spacesuit and fit it in an Aurora. So you won't have trouble getting out of the airlock because you can't get into the ship in the first place. So the armor is also a scaling thing. You have to have a ship that supports that level of armor. Will our avatar actually speak during the Squadron 42 campaign or even in the persistent universe? And if so, are there going to be multiple packages of voice sets? Dave says, I believe so. That's the understanding that we're moving forward with, that you are going to hear your character speak. As to how many variations we have, I'm not sure. It has been said that we will be able to upgrade an LTI Aurora to an LTI Mustang for free once it's released. How will this be handled for Aurora LX and LN owners? Rob said, the way we're going to do it right now is that there is going to be a token that allows you to flip your Aurora to a Mustang. And then for more expensive variants of the Aurora, if there's a price difference, we'll give you a refund in store credit. Eric said there might be some Mustang variants in the future, and Rob said maybe. Can we get a horse in addition to the buggy? I mean, they had horses in Firefly, and since you will be sharing code and tricks with Kingdom Come, it should be quite easy. Rob said, you know how to make an artist cry? Tell them that they have to animate a horse. No, really, we think their horses look really awesome, but there are no plans for that in our game. In regards to damage states, when the ships are returned to a hangar damaged, will the damaged state carry over? Rob said, in Dogfighting version 1, it's not going to because you're in a simulator, but in the persistent universe, it will eventually. The damage will stay, and over time it will get dirtier and more damaged. Are there plans to add a spectator mode with multiple viewpoints allowed, free-floating, in-ship, third person of ship, to the dogfighting module at some point in the future? Rob says, at some point in the future, we've definitely talked about that being an essential thing, as far as people being able to watch other people fight, but not in version 1. The one thing we will have in version 1 is if you eject from your ship, you can hang out in space and watch the battle around you. That sounds terrifying. If you are tracking someone that is wanted dead or alive, and when you catch up to them, they force you to drag back a corpse rather than a prisoner, what happens to their ship? Since you legally killed them, do you get to keep their vessel as part of the spoils, or do they retain ownership? Rob says, let's think about real life for a moment. If you're a bounty hunter and you drag somebody in, you don't get to keep their car. So in this case, no, you don't get to keep their ship. It's still an act of piracy to steal their ship. So if you want to be a pirate and a bounty hunter, great, kill them, take their ship. With the indication that the Idris has actually grown in size via its specific stats on its sheet, should its class be modified from Corvette to that of frigate? Rob said technically it is a little bit large compared to the small ships to be a Corvette, but it's still a Corvette. Basically the relative scale of the larger ships have increased to go with it. It all works out perfectly in the scale chart. The character animations are cool, but they're a bit on the slow side. If I have to run from the gunner seat to put out a fire down the hall, I don't want my avatar taking his sweet time about it. Will there be faster animations in emergency situations? Rob says yes, the animations are going to be undergoing constant tweaking. Don't expect that everything in there is going to stay the way it is now. We're not sure if we're going to do separate contextual faster animations, but they're going to be tweaked to be faster in some cases. Will there be AI voices in ships? And if so, will we be able to customize the voice and personality? Rob says, we'll probably have more than one eventually, but for right now, Bitching Betty will have a single voice. Will there be investigation missions in StarCitizen, such as investigating a crime or deciphering alien hieroglyphics to unlock an ancient vault or anything similar? Rob says, initially for the persistent universe, we plan to do some form of investigation to find people that you are hunting down for bounties. The more advanced content like that is on our roadmap for the long term, but it probably won't have that level of detail at launch. How is time handled in the verse? Rob says, from a standpoint of time passing on planets, yes, there will be a night and day cycle. From the point of view of time compression, we're not sure what that number is yet. I think it will take a lot of playing around with it to see what feels comfortable. We're pretty sure there's going to be compressed time in the game though. The other piece of that one is the standard Earth time, which is something we do in our fiction. Dave Haddock has talked about time a lot, and we do keep a standardized clock. So if you're setting something up on your calendar, it'll be at the same time. Now let's hit 2 weeks worth of 10 for the chairman. Keep in mind, these are paraphrased because Chris loves to give super lengthy answers to things. I promise I'll hit all the important bits. Here we go with 10 for the chairman, number 9. The Drake Herald's position as an information runner and data encryption ship makes it very interesting. However, is this a niche PvE mission ship, or is it something more? How will the information and data aspects affect PvP in the persistent universe? In an information runner, you can carry encrypted data that can be very valuable because there is no FTL communication. Communication works like this. I'm on Earth and I want to send a message to Terra. I would beam that information to a relay station by a jump point, and then that information would be encrypted, placed on a drone, and then sent through the jump point and intercepted by another relay station on the other side. It would do this over and over until it reached Terra, passing through a lot of hands. In a Drake Herald with data encryption banks, this would be much safer. Also, there are places in space that have no relay stations. You talked about some matchmaking criteria, and I wanted to know what the skill levels are based on since there won't be any leveling. The matchmaking will have a lot of criteria. Part of it will be your ping, part of it will be what you're really into, PvE or PvP. And also part of it will be how good of a fighter you are or how good your ship is. We haven't 100% figured it out, but I think that your kill count would probably figure into it as well. But it would have to be if someone is a trader and they're really good and pretty defensive and they're strong, then they can match up against someone who is a strong pirate. Can you elaborate on top speed mechanics and how they interact with combat instances? Chris said, I'm still working out the top speed mechanics. We are going to be limiting top speed for dogfighting, mainly for fun, but also there's a pseudoscience aspect where as you make rapid directional changes, that would be a vast amount of deceleration, then acceleration to make that change over a short period of time. It would be a huge amount of forces on the body, and a human body can only withstand so much. So the intelligent flight control system that's in most of the ships will limit the velocities based on safe areas so you won't kill yourself when changing directions. There will definitely be cases where you'll be going much faster from one area to another area at warp or 0.2 C. In that case, you would be accelerating to that speed and decelerating over time. I'm toying with the idea of you being able to run away where you just keep on accelerating. You'll go faster than the IFCS will let you for dogfighting, but as you go faster, the ship will not let you do much turning. If you try to flee a battle, you can go fast, but if someone gets on your tail, that's pretty much a free shot. Tractor beams suggest that ships are able to scoop up cargo from space into their cargo bays. I assume the reverse would also be possible, to jettison cargo into space. How does this work on ships where there are no bulkheads between crew compartments and the cargo holds? That's something we're digging into now with the design. We're actually trying to figure out exactly how we bring cargo in from space. One way would be to have a tractor beam to help out. The other way would be to have some level of EVA where you would get into your spacesuit and take a little space sled out, pick up the cargo, and bring it back into your hold. Most of the ships that are really designed for pulling cargo should have an airlock door between the cargo hold and the pilot or living quarters area so that you can space the cargo and you don't have to space the living area. You mentioned that the Idris was undergoing some interior changes in order to fit the amount of ships that you wanted inside the hangar. How many ships do you plan on allowing inside an Idris and which ones? Chris said, we've actually been refactoring the Idris for the needs of Squadron 42, which would be a military corvette. So we've done a whole bunch of work for the interior. It has an armory, a med bay, and a briefing room. It's pretty cool. We've actually expanded it more than we were conceiving of because of the needs of Squadron 42. The ship loadout on the Corvette is 2 active Hornets, and they have a 3rd Hornet in case one of the other Hornets gets damaged. You can generally assume that you can fit 3 ships of Hornet size or smaller on board the Corvette and fly 2, maybe 3 if you want to push it. Is it possible to do PvP with my friends for fun without losing my ship and equipment all the time? Chris says yes it is. That's exactly what the simulator arena mode is going to be. The DFM that we are going to be releasing a little later on this year is exactly that. That is the precursor to the final arena mode that will be in the game. It will allow you and your friends to practice against bots, have competitions, and all of that in a much more arena respawn model than the full persistent universe. There will be a pro sports level competition. Will we be seeing an integrated bug report or feedback system as we get into more and more bigger testing? Chris says, I definitely think we'll be able to. We just use Jira now for our internal stuff. Ultimately, we may have some version of that will be exposed to the public. The only problem you have is if you have 200,000 people playing, you can completely overwhelm the system and overwhelm anyone who is managing that data. We haven't figured it out exactly, but in the long run, there will probably be some sort of automated logging to send information into us. How will StarCitizen address such a situation where you have but a stick of bubblegum and a prayer holding your ship together and communications have been shot to pieces? Will we be able to attempt a manual landing, or will we have to put our faith in our escape pods? Chris said, I haven't really considered the case where your ship is shot up so much that your communication module is broken and you get to a planet and want to land, but of course you don't have communications. You can't land. I think what we would do in that situation is that your planet would recognize that you were really shot up and say that you are cleared to land without you having to request it. In terms of landing on another ship in space like a carrier or a corvette, In that case, you would just have to do a manual landing versus an automatic landing. And if none of that works for you, you can always use your escape pod. Will the death of a spaceman always be the final destination for our pilots, or will we be able to, say, retire them and perhaps have them populate the universe? Maybe as the grizzled old pilot lurking in the back seat of a bar, the weathered mechanic cobbling ships back together in the seedy side of the spaceport, or the battle-scarred former pirate threatening farm boys and old Jedi in cantinas. We were actually just having a design debate today because we were drilling down on the death mechanics in the PU. We were mentioning that it would be kind of cool if towards the end of your character's life you could retire your character out and just have them die in the field, so to speak. We haven't really figured out what that would mean in terms of getting retired. Whether they would actually exist as a persistent NPC or they would just exist in our own worldviews and send you an email from time to time. Several months ago, Chris Roberts made a comment about looking into the possibility of making an official StarCitizen gamepad or HOTAS. Is there any further word on this or if it's going to happen? Chris said, "We're moving forward with long-term plans on that. It won't be anything happening before the DFM, but I think you could see us making some announcements after the DFM. We have been talking to the various peripheral manufacturers, and quite a lot of them have been keen to do something with us, making some StarCitizen themed controllers and having a HOTAS that is specifically configured to work well with StarCitizen." Alright, now we're going to move into 10 for the Chairman number 10, which had Dave Haddock, the lead writer, as a guest on the show. My favorite thing about StarCitizen is the tiny details that show you have obviously put a lot of thought into the game's world. What would surprise us the most to hear that you had planned in advance? Chris and Dave both expound on inspiration for the architectural design in the game and how they're revisiting it. This is an insanely long answer, so I'm going to greatly paraphrase this thing. They basically discuss how the problem with a lot of movies or games is that all the art is done by the artist in his own style, and cities all end up looking mostly the same, when in reality, if you have cities that have been around for thousands of years, like in StarCitizen's world, they would have lots of completely different styles and looks to different parts of them and on different worlds. They discuss how the cultures in StarCitizen have been through wars, terraforming, and expansions, and all manner of other major events, and how that's shaped the designs and styles of the different places in different eras. They get very detailed. The current century in the universe for humans is all about biomimicry, which is all about organic, sweeping shapes. Chris finishes by saying this is the kind of thought that goes into building this universe and world. You've said in the past that the Idris is not really a ship that is meant to be played solo. However, I'm still guessing that you'll be able to fly it solo if you want. Is that true? Chris said, honestly, I haven't made up my mind because there are certain ships that I feel like you need to play with other players to man correctly. Things like the Constellation and the Freelancer, you don't have to. You can hire either NPC crews or do it yourself. I haven't made the decision on the Corvette because it's definitely on the cusp. Anything bigger than a Corvette, I think you'll definitely have to have at least several other players to play it with you. Potentially with the Corvette, you could have some NPCs, but I'm leaning towards making that more of a multi-crew ship. You invite some of your friends to fly with you. But the full decision isn't made on that one, so it's kind of still up in the air. Will the Origin 890 Jump, RSI Orion, Aegis Surveyor, Anvil Karak, Misk Hull C, and the Drake Herald become available as single ship pledge packages before release? Chris said, we haven't fully decided what we're going to do there, but I'm willing to say that quite a few of those probably will be available before the game comes out. Definitely the 890 Jump. And then the other ones, the ones that everybody voted for, probably. I think there's over 50 different ships that we have to do at the moment. Will a convoy made primarily of haulers ever be able to legitimately defend itself against a raiding party of fighters? Chris says, if you're flying completely unarmed cargo freighters and that's it, and there's fighters, then obviously you won't be able to. But we're designing most of the ships to have weaponry, like the Freelancer is a pretty well-armed cargo ship. Maybe the Starfarer isn't as maneuverable as something like a Freelancer will be, but it's certainly going to have guns and turrets on it, and if you're taking a Starfarer and taking a whole bunch of goods, you've probably hired a few people to fly escort for you. So that's how you'd have to approach that. You can hire NPCs, or you can have your friends help you, or hire other players. I'm hoping that will ensure a reasonable balance of power. And of course, if you're trading in the regulated areas, the safer areas, then there are significant penalties for people trying to attack and raid you, so you're likely going to be fairly safe trading in the core UEE worlds. But as you get further out, you'll be less safe. Is it possible to have modules which allow the transfer of shields and cost of your own capacitor to another ship, or even remotely repair someone's hull or armor? Chris says, I would say no. It's not possible for you to take your shield and transfer it somewhere else or to help repair other people. You can definitely on your own shield manage energy to it and power to it so you can have more power go to the front or back, and if one of your segments is failing, you can pump more power to it because the regeneration rate of the shield is based on the amount of power that's pumped into it. And so you can manage that, and we do have a whole interface in the HUD for that. Will there be different types of jump points in the persistent universe? Example, one-way jump points, collapsing jump points that larger ships can't use, jump points that require special equipment to use after they're discovered, etc. Chris says, I would say yes, there will be different types of jump points. We've talked about potentially having some jump points that only some smaller ships could pass, or maybe you've got to fly with a small ship and a bigger ship has to fly a different route. There will definitely be some one-way jump points. What kind of peripheral support can we expect to see in the first iteration of the dogfighting module? Specifically, are there plans to integrate TrackIR into the first version? Chris says, TrackIR probably will not be in the first release of the dogfighting module, but Oculus Rift may be. But that's sort of dependent on Crytek because they're doing some work to fix some of the lag issues that we have. We really just want to get the dogfighting version 1 out so everyone can use it. But I want to get the Rift running as soon as possible, and then right after that will obviously be the TrackIR, but probably not for version 1, possibly for the Rift though. Myself and a few of my mates are planning on being bounty hunters as our main job in the persistent universe. Can you clarify if there will be an official bounty system, and if so, how will it work? Chris said yes, there will definitely be an official bounty system. There will be an official list of bounties, kind of like the FBI's most wanted list. You will get these from a mission board on a planet, and it will be per system. The global bounty hunting system will have rewards, and it will require more than just going after someone in space. There will be some tracking that you'll have to do, including planet-side stuff. Are you reworking the Constellation like you did with the Avenger? Chris said yes, we are reworking the Constellation like we did the Avenger. We are doing some design modifications to make loading and unloading cargo much easier, to maximize the cargo space, and also to not have it conflict with the entrance and launching of the Merlin. And we're also considering moving the living quarters to the front nearby where the piloting section is, so the back is just cargo and the engine room. I think there were a fair number of threads about that a while ago, so that's in the work along with some variants. Can you explain how EVA will work in the game? Will we be able to repair damage to our ships or explore wrecks? Chris said yes, you will be able to repair damage to your ship and you will be able to explore wrecks. We're going to have EVA in the game. Most of the ships have airlocks that will allow you to go outside. Some of the ships like the Hornet don't really have that, so you would have to open the canopy. You'd have to vent the space and then you'd have to detach yourself from the seat. We have a full zero-G plan for movement. So if you have an EVA suit, it will have little thrusters for you to move around. Think of the movie Gravity. You'll be able to grab hold of things as well. This is all being worked on by the team that's doing the first-person boarding stuff. They're working on simulating the zero-G stuff correctly, and you could use that to go outside to potentially even board another ship or to do some patch-up repairs. You will never be able to fully repair your ship in space. You would have to go planet-side to get that done. That's it for all the super-duper long Q&A. Let's check out some other news. So this last week I got to check out a little game called Pulsar Lost Colony, and let me tell you, the potential for fun with your friends in this game is through the roof. If you've ever heard of Artemis Bridge Simulator, this is kind of like a graphical version of that, but with the ability to go down to planets with your friends and physically do ship repairs, laser shootouts, etc. I would describe this game loosely as FTL from a first-person perspective. The game is currently very alpha, and the first playable version dropped last week. The developer is already making his first patch update this week, and things are shaping up nicely. When I first logged into the game and had another player on the deck with me, it was mind-blowing for some reason. I was adjusting power ratios for different ship systems in first person, and on the other side of the bridge, I could see him navigating the ship and firing weapons at a drone that was attacking us while fires were breaking out in our engine room. The potential here for good times is through the roof, and I cannot wait until this game gets more stuff added to it. Beam me up right now. On another note, I found a forum post by CIG dev W Greeno CIG responding to some questions about explosive decompression. He states that explosive decompression is something that everyone wants to see in the game, so we shouldn't worry about whether or not it's going to be there. He then goes on to say they're planning to have a ton of things in Squadron 42 that may or may not happen that you, the player, will be able to affect in different ways and then will in turn affect the persistent universe for you. The example he gave is of a base destroyed by a torpedo, and the player has a chance to save NPCs as the facility vents into space. The NPCs you save and lose would persist into the persistent universe, and the ones you saved may return a favor someday. This is just super interesting and one that I know we all want to see. It's great that they have this kind of thing in mind, and I hope it comes to fruition. Now it's time for the r/StarCitizen Post of the Week. This week it goes to Gorilla Astronomer for his thread Ask an Astrophysicist. This is a really cool thread with a lot of neat info inside. Thanks for taking the time to do this thread and answer questions for the community, Tim. I really enjoyed reading through it, and I learned a few things myself. And on a side note with this update, there is a second thread for this as well, and I will link both. Before I end the show today, I'd just like to say thank you again to everyone for all of the support. We hit 7,000 subscribers this week, and I'm really excited about that. I'm putting this at the end of the episode so that it doesn't take up any space during the content. I just want to tell you a little bit about my situation. What I would like to be able to do is to do this content production stuff full time. As you know, it doesn't really pay anything, and I have a baby on the way. I'm at the point where I'm trying to figure out how to manage my live Twitch stuff, my gaming community, my regular job, and everything that I have a passion for making in relation to StarCitizen. I want to be able to do about 3 shows a week. One would be Whole Truth, one would be a lore series, and one would be something else that I won't reveal yet. I would also like to be a leader in the StarCitizen community by continuing the show through the release of the game and onward indefinitely, eventually morphing it or making another separate show and using real journalists to report on the in-game happenings of the StarCitizen world. To be able to do all of that, I need to be able to justify my time spent. It takes me around 20 hours a week right now just to get Whole Truth out with all the new content that they put out every week. I'm a grown-up with a real-life responsibility to my wife and my family life, and my first baby is on the way. I'm not putting anything into the bank doing all of this, and so it's tough. I'm going to keep plugging away at this as long as I possibly can, regardless of what happens. But a lot of people have asked me since the beginning of this for a way to support the show and help keep it going. So what I did was I put up this little support thing called Patreon. It's a little bit like Kickstarter, but it's built more around regular content creators like myself. I have a page all set up, and I've been languishing over showing this to you guys for weeks because I don't want people to think that I'm in this for the money. Whole Truth and any other videos that I ever make will always be put on YouTube and be 100% free. But if you want to support the indefinite continuation of the show and help me create more content, this is how you can do that. This will also help me gauge interest and determine if long-term creation of more content and cost of equipment and space upgrades are worth it. Please do not feel obligated in any way, shape, or form. I am 100% happy and content with all the support that I've gotten from you guys so far, and I absolutely love this community. This is just a grown man saying I got to get a job, and I would love for this stuff to be it. The link is down below in the About/Show More section. If you want to leave feedback about what you think about this, feel free to do so. I'm always 100% open to listen to other people's thoughts and opinions, and I do take them all into consideration. If you'd just like to tell me to go get a real job, go for it. It won't bother me at all. I love you guys. Thank you for being such an awesome group, and I'll see you all again next week on The Whole Truth. Goodbye.